All right, sixth grade. So we are moving along today here in chapter 8, and we have a couple of things that we're going to look at today. And we're going to start here with finding the distance between the points. So the idea is that you would think about where these points would go and then figure out the distance between them. Now, we are not actually going to plot the points on a coordinate plane in this video. However, you can do it that way. But what I'm actually going to focus on is reminding us of how the quadrants work. Okay? And so here we have quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. And basically, the rule is if the 2 points are in a different quadrant, we're going to add. If they're in the same quadrant, we are going to subtract. And this has all of the things to do with absolute value. So first of all, we're going to think of 7, negative 3. Well, that means it's positive on the x-axis, negative on the y-axis. So here's our x-axis. We know that that's the x-axis. We know that that's the y-axis. So 7, 3, if it's positive on the x-axis and negative on the y-axis, it's in quadrant 4. Now negative 2, negative 3 means it's negative 2 on the x-axis, negative 3 on the y-axis. That puts it over here in quadrant 3. Now I didn't actually label the points. All I did is figure out what quadrant they were in. Now, since they're in different quadrants, I'm going to add the absolute values of the different things. So basically, the y-axis, negative 3, is the same. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the absolute value of 7, and I'm going to be adding it to the absolute value of negative 2. And remember what absolute value is. Absolute value is how far away it is from 0. Okay? So the absolute value of 7 is 7. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2, and 7 plus 2 equals 9. So they have a distance of 9. Okay? Now, 8, 2, and 8, 5. Well, 8, 2 is going to be positive on the x-axis, positive on the y-axis. So that's going to be in quadrant 1. 8, 5, once again, it's positive on the x-axis, positive on the y-axis. It also is in quadrant 1, which means they're in the same quadrant. And the rule says same quadrant, subtract. So essentially now, I am taking the absolute value of 5, and I just go ahead and put the bigger number first, because when I talk about a distance, I'm not going to say, well, there's a distance of negative. Okay, so when I subtract, you always just put the bigger number first. The absolute value of 5 minus the absolute value of 2. Well, the 5 is 5 away from 0. 2 is 2 away from 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. The distance of these 2 points is 3. So that's what happens. The key is figuring out what quadrant the point is in. If it's in a different quadrant, you add. If it's in the same quadrant, subtract. Now we're going to take this same concept, this same strategy and philosophy into the second part of what you're going to do. All right, let me grab the other board here. And this is imagining that you had some sort of polygon. And so once again, they give me ordered pairs, and it's not really going to be necessary to take the time to plot them, okay? My job is to figure out what the lengths are from line to line and then go from there. So now I'm going to think, okay, I've got point A here, I've got point B here, I've got point C here, I've got point D there. Now I know there's 4 sides. Not sure that it's necessarily that length, but we're just trying to figure out what the differences are. So basically, with 3, negative 2, and 3 and 5, well, here I can see that they're both going to be positive on the x-axis, But this one's going to be negative on the y-axis, and this one's going to be positive on the y-axis. So without even realizing it, I can see, well, these are going to be in different quadrants. Another way to look for it is if you have where one number's negative and one number's positive, you know they're going to be different. Okay? These are both positive, but this one's negative and that one's positive. So they're going to be in different quadrants. Well, remember the rule. Different quadrants add. Okay? So I'm going to take the absolute value of -2, and I'm going to add the absolute value of 5. And that's going to become 2 plus 5, which I believe equals 7. So the distance between A and B is 7. And I'm just going to do a little scratch work here to show you how you're going to set these up. Now I need to find the difference between B and C. I need to figure out what that distance is. Now, I can see that these are both positive and these are both positive, which tells me they're both in the same quadrant. Okay, the X is positive in both of them, the Y is positive in both of them, so they're going to be located in the same quadrant. Same quadrant means subtract. So once again, the 5, the Y coordinate is what's the same. So I'm basically going to be doing the absolute value of 7, which I know is 7, minus the absolute value of 3, which I know is 3. And I know that 7 minus 3 equals 4. So I know that this distance here is 4. Now, between C and D, once again, the X coordinate is positive for both, but C has a Y coordinate that's positive, D has a Y coordinate that's negative. Okay, so different quadrants, different quadrant add. So it's the 7 that's the same, so I'm going to be taking the absolute value of 5, and I'm going to be adding the absolute value of -2, and I'm seeing a similarity between what I did right here, just the numbers are flip-flopped. Well, I know that that's essentially going to be 5 plus 2, because that's 2 away from 0. So that's going to give me 7, which means that that's 7 between C and D. Now, the difference between D and A now, this distance right here, okay? The X coordinates are both positive. The Y coordinates are both negative. So that tells me, once again, they are in the same quadrant because both A and D have the same X coordinate, and both A and D have, well, they don't have the same X coordinate, but the X coordinate is both positive. And they actually have the same Y coordinate, but the key here is that they are both negative. So they are in the same quadrant. Same quadrant means subtract. I see my numbers here. The -2 is the same, so I'm worried about 7 minus 3. 7 minus 3 is 4. You're going to notice a pattern here. You're pretty much going to see these patterns here. And so now I have all of my coordinates. Now I want to go back and reread the directions. It says, find the perimeter and the area of the polygon with the given vertices. Well, perimeter, remember, is the distance around the polygon. So all I'm going to do is add up all these sides together. So I'm going to start here. 7 plus 4 is 11, plus 7 more is 18, plus 4 more is 22. So my perimeter equals 22. Now the area of a quadrilateral, like a rectangle or a square, is length times width, okay? So essentially I'm doing 7 times 4. And 7 times 4 is 28. So the area is going to be 28 square units, because we know that area is always in square units. And that's what you're going to be doing. So it's about finding the distance between the points on the first part, but then on the second part, we're kind of upping the ante there. We've got to find the distance between all these points and then use that information to find the perimeter and area of the polygon. And I believe on your paper they're all going to be quadrilaterals. So, all right, we'll talk to you later, 6th grade. Bye.